world of true crime content is a strange and shadowed landscape, a digital coliseum where tragedy is consumed as content. For the admin of a popular Russian crime channel, the night of December 10, 2020 began like any other. The inbox was a familiar churn of tips, theories, and the occasional morbid prank. He was a curator of human darkness, accustomed to the grotesque, desensitized by the sheer volume of horror that flooded his screen daily. But at 8:54 p.m., a message arrived that cut through the noise. It was a voice note, short and laced with an unearning calm. The sender, an anonymous follower, spoke of a story about to break, a story so seismic it would not just capture headlines but would shake the entire country. The admin had heard it all before. Grandiose claims were the currency of his trade. He filed it away mentally as just another dramatic tip, another voice crying out from the digital wilderness. The sender, however, added a detail that snagged his attention. The files would arrive just after midnight, and they were volatile. Download them immediately, the voice warned, or they might vanish. There was no threat, only a strange, almost instructional urgency. It felt less like a tip and more like a final directive. As the hours ticked by, a sense of unease began to curdle in the admin's stomach. He had seen countless photos and videos, brutalized bodies, chaotic crime scenes, confessions filmed in dimly lit rooms. But they were almost always archival, recycled tragedies from the internet's vast and morbid memory. This felt different. This felt live. At 11:59 p.m., 5 minutes ahead of schedule, the notification chimed. The first files landed in his inbox. He clicked open the first image, and the professional detachment he had cultivated for years evaporated in an instant. This was not a repost. This was not old news. The image was brutally clear, sickeningly high resolution. A woman's body, arranged with a kind of macabre stillness, bore the unmistakable marks of a violent, intimate struggle. Her death was not just an act of violence, it was a statement. Then came the video clips. In some, a second victim was visible, a small, wounded, lifeless form. The admin's blood ran cold. He was not looking at a historical record. He was the first public witness to a fresh slaughter. The ghost in his machine was the killer himself, the boy who was left behind. The man behind this meticulously documented horror was Akshin Guseynov, born on November 4, 1988, in the provincial city of Armavir. To understand the monster who orchestrated his own infamy, one must first look at the boy who was left behind. His father, Akshin Guseynov, was a man of uniform and ambition, climbing the ranks of the military. His mother worked in a care facility, tending to the vulnerable. But the care within their own home fractured when Akshin was just 7. His parents' divorce was not just a separation, but an amputation. Tillman moved to Makeup and surgically removed himself from his son's life. No calls, no letters, no birthdays acknowledged. An emotional and paternal void opened up in Akshin's life, and into that void a quiet rage began to fester. Raised by his mother and grandmother, Akshin was, to them, a normal boy. But the world outside the front door saw a different child. Classmates remembered a boy with a short fuse and a cruel streak. One childhood acquaintance recalled a story so disturbing it was spoken of only in hushed, incomplete fragments. At 14, Akshin and a group of local troublemakers allegedly set fire to a homeless man sleeping in their building's courtyard. Whether the man survived or any of the boys were ever questioned remains a dark, unanswered question lost to the alleys of Armavir. Publicly, Akshin's mother maintained a facade of normalcy, but in private, she confided a gnawing feeling of unease. She felt her son was a stranger in their home, an alien presence possessed by a desperate need to escape and carve out a domain of his own. After vocational school, he drifted through jobs before finding a temporary home in his uncle's construction company, and later a passion for paintball, which he turned into a small business. He rented his own apartment and launched other ventures, but his goals were never modest. He wasn't chasing a comfortable living.
He was hunting for power and control. Then, in 2013, his father reappeared after years of silence. Spurred on by friends, Tellman made a perfunctory effort to reconnect. The meeting was a hollow, awkward affair. Two strangers, bound only by blood, exchanged a few sterile words. It was a brief, painful confirmation of what Akshin already knew. He was utterly alone. The wound of his abandonment was not healed. It was salted.
The girl who craved a storm. Akshin's life collided with Victoria Makarova's in the mundane setting of a chain store. Born a day after him, but 6 years later, Victoria was a product of a similar yet different kind of broken home. She grew up in a small village 30 kilometers from Armavir, her childhood punctuated by the constant fighting of her parents. Her father eventually left, but unlike Akshin's, he remained in the same village, a constant, indifferent presence who never bothered to check on his daughter. Despite this, Victoria's life was filled with love. Her mother was her anchor, and in 2011, their world expanded to include her baby brother, Dmitry, or Dima. Victoria and her mother poured all their affection into the boy, raising him in a bubble of fierce, protective love. Victoria was bright and capable. She earned a degree in economics, but found her calling not in a sterile office, but on the floor of a shoe store. She was naturally warm, her smile genuine, her interactions with customers effortless. She took pride in her work, a simple joy that seemed to elude the perpetually striving Akshin. On weekends, she would return to her village, a devoted daughter and sister, often bringing little Dima back with her to the city to shield him from loneliness while their mother worked grueling night shifts. But in matters of the heart, Victoria was drawn to fire. Friends described her as someone who craved drama, who found stability boring. She wanted the emotional roller coasters, the towering infernos of arguments followed by the desperate, clinging passion of reconciliation. Her love life was a self-penned soap opera, and she was its willing star. It was this thirst for intensity that drew her into the orbit of Akshin Guseynov, a man whose need for control was a ticking time bomb. Their meeting was not just a crossing of paths, it was the setting of a fuse.
A kingdom in miniature. Victoria had once confided in friends that she dreamed of a life plucked from a romance novel, a world of mysterious suitors, grand gestures, and dramatic twists. For a time, she had been in a serious relationship, one that everyone assumed was heading toward marriage. Then, in 2017, it abruptly ended. The reason may well have been the man she met a year earlier, in 2016, at the Kari shoe store where she worked, Akshin Guseynov. From their first meeting, Akshin was utterly captivated. He saw in Victoria not just a woman to love, but a prize to be won, a beautiful object to possess. He launched a campaign of relentless courtship. There were fancy dinners, bouquets of flowers so extravagant they barely fit through the door, and long, aimless night drives through Armavir. Victoria, who initially felt no deep connection, was swept away by the sheer force of his magnetism. A month later, she moved into his apartment. On the surface, they were the picture of a stable, modern couple. Akshin was surprisingly sweet with her little brother Dima, buying him gifts and treating him like a son. He even made grand promises to Victoria's mother, starting to build a swimming pool in her yard. A project, like many of his promises, that began with a flourish of activity before being quietly abandoned. Victoria charmed Akshin's mother, and to the outside world, they were a strong, grounded pair, building a life together in Akshin's small but meticulously controlled kingdom.
Happiness loves silence. A strange digital silence surrounded their relationship. Akshin's social media was a sterile landscape of paintball victories and business promotions, with not a single photo of Victoria. Her page was the opposite. a vibrant collage of friends, filters, and expensive gifts, but with one glaring omission: Akshin. It was as if he didn't exist in her public world. Some friends whispered that she was keeping her options open. She kept Akshin in the shadows, not out of shame, but out of a superstitious fear. She explained with the old Russian adage, "Happiness loves silence." In 2019, Akshin proposed, and she said yes. The wedding was set for September 2020, yet she refused to wear the engagement ring. The relationship existed in a strange twilight, both official and secret. Then, tragedy struck. Victoria's beloved grandmother passed away, plunging the family into grief. Close on its heels came the spring of 2020 and the global pandemic. The lockdowns were a death blow to Akshin's businesses. Their savings evaporated. The financial pressure added new, deep cracks to their already fragile foundation. That summer, Victoria moved out, telling some friends they had broken up for good. Her cousin later revealed a deeper reason. Victoria wanted a baby, but Akshin insisted on a surrogate, not wanting her to ruin her body. Then there was the money, over 500,000 rubles she and her mother had invested in his business. When she asked it back, he coldly refused, stating it was payment for her time with him. The cracks in their foundation were now chasms.
A life in the shadows, a life in the sun. It was during this period of turmoil, in May 2020, that Victoria's double life began. She met a new man by chance at a shopping center. In that first conversation, she presented herself as single. There was no mention of an engagement, no mention of action. With this new man, everything was different. He was open, posting photos of them together, calling her his love, introducing her to his world as his girlfriend, everything Akshin refused to do. She was living two lives, one in the shadows with her controlling, secret fiancé, and another in the sun with a man who proudly claimed her. While she was building this new life, she remained tethered to Akshin. He continued to pay for her clothes and expenses, even buying her a new iPhone for her birthday in November, a gift purchased with the very money he owed her family. He was marking his territory, reasserting his control through financial means, completely unaware of the extent of her other life. The charade came crashing down on December 3rd. Victoria was at Akshin's house when a message from the new man lit up her phone. "Baby, come, let's do it again." Akshin saw it. His carefully constructed world fractured. When he confronted her, she admitted the affair. "So that's it? Are we breaking up?" he demanded. Her answer was a fatal miscalculation, a vague, non-committal, "I don't know, I need to think about it." She didn't leave, and Akshin, on the surface, forgave her. But beneath the calm, something inside him had irrevocably snapped. The countdown had begun.
The final souvenir. Akshin convinced Victoria to end the other relationship, and the next day she sent the breakup text. For a few days, a fragile false peace settled over them, a silence thick with unspoken tension. On December 8th, Akshin had a calm dinner with his mother, playing the part of the dutiful son. The next morning, in a final, surreal act of normalcy, he picked up Victoria, dropped her mother home from her night shift, and joined them for breakfast. Victoria told her mother she was just running a few errands and doing laundry at Akshin's before she would return that night to care for Dima. She promised to be back. They left together. First, they went to the bank. Then they grabbed sushi. They returned to his apartment, the stage for the final act of their tragic play. They lay side by side, talking about a future that would never exist. He promised her he would earn money, build a good life for them, make her happy, the same empty promises he had always made. Then, at 1:39 p.m., a new message ignited Victoria's phone screen. It was from the other man, an intimate photo, a digital ghost of her other life, a relic of a passion she had supposedly ended. The caption was a casual, thoughtless dagger, a line that would sign her death warrant. "Forgot to send you this little souvenir." Akshin saw it, and the world went black.
The director's cut. The sight of the photograph was not a spark, it was a detonation. In that single, pixelated image, Akshin saw the ultimate betrayal, the final, humiliating proof of his own inadequacy. His rage was not hot and explosive, but cold and methodical. The first blow landed, then another. His fists, his feet, then a dumbbell. Through the haze of pain and terror, Victoria's last words were a desperate whisper, "Don't, I want to live." He bound and gagged her, and then, with a chilling detachment, he picked up his phone. The performance began. Staring into the camera, he delivered a 3-minute monologue, a pseudo-philosophical justification for the horror. "Take a good look at this," he began. "Ask yourself, why are we alive? What's the point?" He carried her body to the bathtub, washed the blood away, and hit record again. This time his voice trembled with self-pitying rage. "I didn't kill her for cheating. I killed her because she wore me down. She had no brain." He claimed he wasn't sorry for her, but for himself. In the final, most grotesque video from that bathroom, he laughed. "You want to know what her last words were?" he asked his unseen audience, before mocking her dying plea. He smiled, proud of his cruel theatrics. With Victoria's body still in the tub, he recorded a 9-minute opus on his own failed grandeur, lamenting that he was born in the wrong time, wrong place, with the wrong brain. He was no longer just a killer. He was the director of his own depraved masterpiece, an act of inhumanity. In his final video from the apartment, the confession took an even darker turn. Staring coldly into the lens, his face smeared with Victoria's blood, he revealed his next target. He had been dreaming of killing her little brother, Dima. "That boy pissed me off," he said, the reason as banal as it was evil. The murder of Victoria was an act of rage. The murder of Dima would be an act of pure, calculated sadism. 30 minutes later, he parked his car outside Victoria's family home. 9-year-old Dima, who knew and trusted Akshin, opened the door without a second thought. He was alone, waiting for the sister who would never return. What followed was an act of inhumanity that defies comprehension. He chose a cleaner method of torture. With chilling calmness, he broke every single one of the boy's fingers, then his toes, then his wrists and his forearms. He worked slowly, methodically, prolonging the child's agony. Finally, when the small body was broken, he strangled him. He took photos. He filmed video. He packaged the evidence of his depravity and, in his role as both killer and journalist, sent the files to the true crime page. The monster had delivered his scoop. His work done, he got in his car and drove toward the Black Sea. On the way, he used Victoria's phone to call her ex-lover, trying to lure him to the apartment. The man was cautious, and the plan failed. Close to midnight, with the icy waters waiting, he dropped the blood-soaked files into a group chat, announced his intentions, and at 12:23 a.m. vanished from the digital world. The drowned man's legacy. Moments after Akshin's digital suicide, the true crime admin, grappling with the horror on his screen, made a decision. At 5:56 a.m., the story went public. The news exploded across the internet. Police hotlines lit up. For Victoria's family, the nightmare arrived via a phone screen. Her mother, still at her night shift job, learned of her children's slaughter from strangers online. The media descended like vultures. A reporter cornered Akshin's grandmother on the street and delivered the news with brutal efficiency. The elderly woman's world collapsed on a public sidewalk. Police officially charged the fugitive Akshin with double murder and launched a massive manhunt. Victoria's black car was found abandoned near the coast, the door open. For 3 days, a state of suspense hung over the region. But the sea keeps its appointments. On December 14, the body of Akshin Guseynov was found washed ashore at a southern port, nearly 100 kilometers from his car. The man who wanted to shake the world had been unceremoniously delivered back by the tide, a bloated, insignificant corpse. On October 21, 2021, the case was officially closed. The story of Akshin Guseynov is more than a simple, brutal case file. It's a chilling testament to a modern pathology where a life of quiet desperation and narcissistic rage culminates in a meticulously documented public performance of violence. He failed to achieve the power he craved in life, so he sought infamy in death, turning his final horrific hours into a spectacle for the world to consume. He was a digital ghost who haunted his victims long after their hearts stopped beating. A drowned man who thought the whole world was watching, but who ultimately died as he had lived, utterly and completely alone.